Good evening, everybody. Thank you to... Okay, try again. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for attending this meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Performance Panel on Thursday, the 27th of July 2023. My name is Councillor Aidy Riggett. I am the chair of this committee. Councillor Roy Lees is my vice chair. Please note this meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. Members in the room, when you want to speak, please raise your hand to indicate to me that you wish to speak, and when I invite you to speak, please turn your microphone on. Please can everybody ensure their phones are turned to silent? We are not expecting a fire drill, so if the alarm sounds, please exit the way you came in. Have any apologies, please?
There's no apologies, Chair.
Thank you. Item 1, minutes of the meeting, Thursday the 9th of March 2023. Are there any issues to raise on the accuracy of the minutes, please? No, I do have a question, if that's okay, just bear with me one moment. When I was reading through the minutes previously, I wasn't on this committee at this point, but on page 5, there were questions raised and it said information will be provided and reported back and a list of things starting at Brinscall swimming baths. I just like confirmation that that has been done.
There was a document that was circulated, but I can double check for you, Chair.
So the recommendation is the minutes of the meeting are approved. And
Chair.
Thank you. A seconder?
Second, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, item 2, declarations of interest. Members are reminded of their responsibility to declare any pecuniary interest in respect of matters contained in this agenda. If a member has a pecuniary interest, they are requested to leave the room for consideration of that item, and the member can return to the room following the completion of the item in question. Does anybody have anything to declare? Okay, thank you. Item 3, performance focus, customer and digital, pages 7 to 16 in your agenda pack. Councillor Adrian Lowe will present the report and is here with the Director of Customer and Digital, Asim Khan, and Chris Wormsley, the Head of Street Scene and Waste. Over to you, Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm appreciative of the fact that Councillor Brown is also joining the meeting via Teams. So welcome this opportunity to focus on the Directorate of Customer and Digital. Very pleased to present in overall terms a very positive report, but I will go on to highlight a number of issues in the report. So we're providing the panel with a performance update, including Directorate summary and budget position for Q4, an overview of the key performance measures, and an update on the corporate strategy projects. I was last invited in July 22, and so I'm very appreciative of the invite to present my Directorate's report. We cover shared ICT, shared customer service, Chorley Street Scene and waste management, and we go on so that it's the performance up to March 2023 Q4, and it also includes a breakdown of the financial position, key performance indicators and progress towards projects. As you can see from paragraph 8 of the report, 11 of the performance indicators performing on or above target for Q4. There are 39 business plan projects under the Directorate, of which 25 are rated green or completed and 14 are rated amber, but there is quite a lot of explanation, and I believe that fuller details were provided at your March meeting of this body on that. If we go on to the financial position, and you'll note at paragraph 9 that there is just short of a £35,000 underspend in the Directorate, and I've asked the officers just to update to members outside of the meeting. There are 6 bullet points at paragraph 12 that a couple of those are incorrect. It doesn't affect the overall underspend of 35,000, but from a transparency point of view, I want to give members as much clear information as possible. If we go on to the corporate strategy indicators, as from paragraph 15, we're doing quite well for most of them, and there are two of the indicators reporting the corporate strategy are performing better than target. One indicator, which is the percentage of household waste sent for recycling, etc., is performing worse than target, but is within the 5% threshold with a marginal difference of 0.7%. If we go on to the local indicators for both ICT and customer service, there is a detailed explanation as to why the average days to process a new council tax support and housing benefit claim is worse than Q4, and that is detailed at paragraph 18 of the report. If we go on to the street scene and waste management, apologies, but the figure, third one down, the percentage of grounds maintenance service requests completed on time, is not correct at 80.3%. The actual figure that should have gone out to you, which I'm now reporting to you, and should be corrected, is 87.8%. So I can only apologise when this report was compiled that information was incorrect. We'll go down further. Again, there is an explanation at paragraph 20 of the report to say about the operation from a grounds maintenance point of view, and there is fluctuating service request, and it's very seasonal anyway, but that goes into more detail. We go on to the from paragraph 21 onwards, and there was two corporate strategy projects for 21-22, and they are outlined from paragraph 22 onwards, and the progress that we're making or have made in regard to those projects. If members will recollect that we reviewed the corporate strategy in November of last year, and we've produced a new corporate strategy for 23. This was approved at Council in November 22, and the only project that this directorate covers as part of the 23-24 corporate strategy is to deliver improvements to the public transport networks, and we're well on course to, as it says in the report, to deliver year one of the 5-year bus shelter improvement plan, and there'll be further reports coming back outside of this meeting as we report back on the corporate strategy progress. So with that, Chair, I'm happy to take any detailed questions, and as you've pointed out, I'm supported by the Director and the Head of Street Scene.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe, for that comprehensive report, and thank you for drawing my attention to those discrepancies. I trust we can add a supplementary note to the online papers for that when they're received. Okay, I invite members to make any comments. Councillor Lees.
Yeah, the correction you just made regarding that, the third one down, 87%. Does that change the trend, or is it better than Q4 last year?
Through you, Chair, it would change it to, in effect, a green star, better than Q4 21-22, because the target for the year, as members will recollect, was changed, I think sometime in 2021, from 80% to 85%. And the target, as it says in that column, is 85%. So for the Q4 performance, it's above target. Yeah, but so it does change.
Yeah, but sometimes we're above target, but it's still worse than the previous quarter. And I just wanted to...
My understanding, unless I'm corrected, that it doesn't. It was better than Q4 in 21-22. And so it's met it should be a green star.
Thank you. I'll be with you on the second, Councillor. But I assume we're indicating to speak on that item, or no? Councillor State?
Thank you. I've got 3 questions. Shall I ask them all at once, or do you want? They're not big, long-winded things or anything. Page 9, the paragraph 12, the 21. It might tie into what you were saying about some of the things needing correcting, but the 21k underspend on professional fees because the review of empty homes wasn't undertaken. Does that, just for my own clarification, because I know there's a task group ongoing as well at the moment for empty homes, but we keep getting told that sits under enforcement and planning, and that's been the gist of the whole discussion about where it sits. So just for my own clarification, and probably for other members, just wonder why that was under this directorate. And then the second one was on page 11, street scene and waste management. Again, just for my own clarification, the percentage of callbacks completed on time. I just wondered what is the target, in terms of, so as well as when we go out and speak to residents and stuff, what is the kind of the aspiration in terms of how long it should take for getting back to people? And then my third one was on page 14, the data collection of waste volumes in the street litter bins. Obviously, when that report's gone to the cabinet member, if there's any reviews on litter bins and so forth, will ward members be involved in that? Or and then my last one, I promise, is on the same page 14, under deliver improvements to public transport networks. It says this project will also bring forward an options-based paper and identifying opportunities for a community car-based scheme. Is that a car club, or is that more of like your dial-a-ride type, community transport type scheme? Because I know we've discussed car clubs through other parts of Scrutiny as well, and I know there was a bit of a feeling, I think Lancaster Council had set one up, but then there was a bit of confusion between like what is a car club and then the difference between the sort of community transport stuff. And that's it, thanks.
Up to you, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I was just making a quick note on that last point. On your first question, Kim, is that empty homes, you're quite right, it does get dealt with by the planning and development team, but there are some issues from a budget point of view that fall within this directorate. But as I've mentioned, is that it's the bottom 2 bullet points on paragraph 12, of which one of them is what you've covered. We will come back to you and update members on the correct figures that this directorate have with regard to empty homes, because we did some work, but then there was an organisational restructuring to make sure that certain services were put in the right directorate. So we'll come back to you on that one. We will come back to you on your second question over the callback, and I believe it's 95% and to respond within 2 days. But if you just bear with me, I will get the officers to copy you in and copy other members of this panel with that. Your third question was the litter bin review and the usage. The first port of call would be that the work and the report will be presented to myself as the executive member, and then once I've had a chance to look at that, and if there are any proposals to in effect relocate certain bins in certain areas, then the natural course of action would be that we would involve ward councillors at that stage. But the first part of the work is to look at the usage in all the loads of bins that we've got Is it 1,200 bins in the entire borough?
1,219.
Yeah, I was not too far away from that calculation. So in answer to your question, Kim, you will be given the opportunity to have input, but we're not at that stage as yet. Your fourth point was in terms of the new, in effect, corporate strategy project, and as the year progresses, we will come back, as it says, with an options paper to clarify some of the points that you've made, to define what is, what we mean by a community car-based scheme, etc. And Vicky may be able to give some more information on that particular point.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so that one is part of a broader project around improving public transport networks, with the idea of making them more attractive but also more accessible. So there is one part around the bus shelter improvements, which is obviously about making the bus kind of network more attractive and making that aspect of it better. And then the other part, as you say, is the community transport. Our current contract with Dial-A-Ride is kind of coming to a conclusion at this point, so it will look at reviewing that contract to see what's worked well. Should we continue that, or should we look at other options such as community cars? How well is that service being used? Should we try a bit of both maybe, depending on the needs of users? So that will include some service user kind of feedback and evaluation, and that should inform a paper with recommendations about what we should do going forward.
Does that answer all your questions, Councillor Snape? Thank you. Okay, Councillor Ainsworth.
Thanks, Chair. There's paragraph 18, where it says benefit processing resources were temporarily diverted in the first and second quarters to manage the increase in customer demand as a result of the government's council tax rebate, and that is regarding performance indicator, average days to process a new council tax support and housing benefit claim. How are the staffing levels at the moment? Have we got enough staff to process these claims?
If I, through you, Chair, I'll get ask him to give you some more, I'd say, further detail. Just to say before I bring him in, members will recall we have done, in effect, a review of customer service staff who deal with the processing, and at the last count, we had, I think, filled 18 vacancies in the structure. There's still some work to do, but Asim, do you want to go into detail?
Thank you. Yeah, through the Chair. Firstly, can I just go back to the last bullet point at paragraph 12 in relation to Councillor Snape's question in relation to empty homes. Councillor Snape is correct in her interpretation of where the responsibility for long-term empty properties sits. However, there is an element in relation to funding that the government provides in relation to new homes and how new homes are interpreted in relation to empty properties, and that aspect of it sits within the Revenues and Benefits Service in customer services under council law. And the incorrect assertion in that last bullet point is that wasn't undertaken, and in actual fact it was undertaken. I just need to confirm that the fee for that was £21,000, and that's the reason why we're going to come back to clarify that particular point. Just turning back to Councillor Ainsworth, a substantive question in relation to resources, and as Councillor Adrian Lowe has pointed out, we have made significant progress in appointments to that particular service. But you are quite right, there are still some vacancies remaining. There are around 4 apprentices vacancies that remain in that particular service, and 3 other vacant posts. So collectively, it's around 7 posts in this moment in time. It is a more moving feast in the sense that we are looking to recruit more apprentices. That's something that the council has committed to do and support. And so wherever possible, we are trying to increase the number of people that are employed within that service area, not least because customer services is one of those areas where I think it's necessary for most people who join the organisation, in particular around the apprenticeship programme, to have some understanding of the importance of customer contact, understanding the demands of residents, and that is a very central area where a combination of different services are represented before people move on to the departments. So we are looking to bolster that particular area of resource. Thank you.
Answer your question, Councillor Ainsworth?
Yeah, it does. Can I just thank Asim for answering that? And I do agree. Apprentices do have to start somewhere, and that is a good department to start in. So yeah, so well done. Thank you.
Just a couple of quick questions, if that's okay. I was going to ask you about paragraph 18, but Sarah was beating me to it. So I was going to ask how have you, obviously we can understand more complex cases take a little bit longer time. I understand that because you need to get your head around it, that's fine. But as from your answer with Sarah, Councillor Ainsworth, it sounds like you've learnt from it and we're getting steps in there to progress from that. And it's good to obviously see apprenticeships coming in there, help people get off and move on to their career. Second question is just on paragraph 19 and just looking at the percentage of grass cutting work completed on time and the winter work completed on time. Is that does that include like ad hoc work that could be phoned in, or is that just regular work that's done on a regular basis? Or?
Through you, Chair, if I get Asim to answer your first question, Jay, and just to emphasise, when we did the customer service restructuring as part of shared services working, we did boost the number of apprenticeships. I think it was 6. We factored into the structure to make sure that we're addressing or anticipating some of the points that members are taking. I'll ask Asim to answer your first point, and then I'll get Chris to answer your second point in terms of grass cutting, but just to remind members that grass cutting schedules were suspended in October due to ground conditions and the winter period, and that's why some of the information isn't there for October onwards, because the team were put onto, in effect, other duties and had other priorities. But I'll get Chris to answer more, but first of all, ask him.
Thank you. So yeah, just moving to the first question, I just wanted to provide a little bit more clarification around point 18. So obviously the performance is in relation to how quickly the council responds to applications for housing benefits in respect of changing circumstances and additional benefits from individual claimants. But often some of that information is provided by partners, notably the DWP in relation to universal credit, and often from the applicant. And in particular, supported accommodation is one of those areas of complexity where that information can take a while for it to be received, which generally falls outside the thresholds that we have set in terms of performance. And therefore, some of that is outside the council's control, and therefore it obviously impacts. Secondly, in addition to complex cases, during Q4 in particular, we have significant additional service-related demand to respond to a raft of, well, in effect, around 50,000 council tax demands that are sent to residents. It's a period where we have a renewal of garden waste subscriptions across the borough, and generally the contact by telephone and face-to-face increase at that moment in time. And it's only right that the service responds to that and prioritises those areas rather than casework, which can be done outside peak periods. And the combination of those two sometimes impacts performance during Q4. In relation to your other question around point 19, my colleague's going to add some additional information, but essentially there are 2 areas of performance that we measure within the street scene and waste service. There's scheduled work and non-scheduled work, which you've quite rightly alluded to. Scheduled work is in relation to the litter bins on the high street. They are emptied on a schedule. That schedule frequency may change depending on how which areas they are located in. Obviously, in the town centre and within certain parishes where there's significant footfall, the frequency of those collections is more than you would envisage in more rural areas or on lay-bys and lanes. There's a schedule in relation to grass cutting that we maintain. Again, that's against the frequency. And there's a schedule that we maintain in relation to street sweeping. Those three areas substantively are scheduled pieces of work, and that the performance for that is around 85% that we measure against. There is ad hoc work outside that in relation to particularly grounds and streets, street work, which is ad hoc requests. And I'm going to pass you on to my colleague, Chris Walmsley, who's the head of service, who's going to give you a little bit more examples of what falls into those two categories.
Thank you, Chair. I don't think there's a great deal I can add to that, but you know, as Asim's already touched on, we split out those reports. So when it references suspending the grass cutting, that is in relation to the scheduled work because of the time of year. But obviously, people can still report issues through to us, and they're picked up in those tasks are picked up in the report showing us street cleansing routes. Grounds maintenance service requests and street service requests, and then they're split up by tasks. So obviously, in the grounds maintenance, if we get any requests for grass cutting, hedge cutting, they would sit within there. And then for the streets in service requests, it's generally the street cleansing, litter bins, street sweeping, and people can report those at any time. The only services that we suspend in terms of people reporting to us through the website is hedge cutting during the nesting season, just because obviously we're restricted in what work we can do at that time of year.
Answer your questions, Councillor Singh? Okay, I have a few questions which I will work through, and I assure you that the length of my questions have nothing to do at all with sincerity of congratulations I received from Asim when I was appointed to this role, and he happened to be the first director here. The first area I would like to touch on particularly was, I think we all would welcome the clarity on the empty homes review. I think that would be important, especially with having a task group coming to the regular committee soon about that. I think that would help. I wanted to first of all pick up on the first item on the top of page 10 with the percentage of customers dissatisfied with the service they receive from the council. Now that's worse than the quarter previously, and I just wondered what the view was on that, if there was any information we had driving those figures, and also whether there was any relationship with the fact that the previous item where we're talking about the number of service requests received online is significantly above target, already reflecting conversations in council the other day about moving from manned ticket officers to online services, whether there was any relationship between those two figures, and we need to do more work to explain to residents how we prefer them to access the service and how that would work for us. So if that's the first item, please.
Through you, Chair, if I ask him to answer the 2 points that you raised, amalgamated into like one question, and then paragraph 15 is the percentage of service requests received online. So the target was like 40%, and in quarter 4, as it shows, 59.17, which is better. The point you make about the percentage of customers dissatisfied with the service they received, again, we can potentially drill down and provide a lot more detail. It's one of these indicators, and probably Vicky will be able to explain in lots of detail. We set a lot of performance indicators, which really you need more substantive material to drill down behind those statistics, but I'll ask Asim to comment.
Yeah, I mean, there's not always a correlation between the two. So obviously, online services are designed for convenience and target specific people within our communities and within the borough. Dissatisfaction is not necessarily just about accessibility of those services. It could be contributed to that in terms of delays, for example, experienced whilst they contact the council. This is, to a large extent, a rounded response in relation to people's general perception of how the council is performing in relation to contact they've made about particular services. And one of those that influences, which we're happy to provide the additional information, is the callbacks. So where people actually get in touch with the council and for whatever reason we are unable to respond immediately, and a callback is put in place for officers to then return the call and provide a more substantive or an explanation as to what the issue with that particular service request is. But there's not always a correlation between online activity and that in relation to dissatisfaction that may be experienced for other reasons.
Thank you. I welcome the answer, and I think it's actually one of the more important performance indicators on here, especially suppose from the members' perspective, because many of the others were measuring against targets we would like to do, but that's actually what residents are telling us. So I think we'd all welcome further clarity on that. I think it's one we always have to keep an eye on. I wanted to, thank you, also just pick up on the percentage of waste being recycled. We seem to still be struggling to really move the needle on that. I'm just wondering if we have any ideas or any interventions planned, how we might do, because the government target is surely going to expect those numbers to significantly increase from where we are at the moment.
Thanks. Before I bring Asim into it to the detailed answer, basically on a daily basis we are aware of operational issues with the contractor, and they've been continuously addressed from officer point of view. And I certainly, around the Christmas period, we're getting basically daily briefings as the exec member. There will be further piece of work, etc., that will be reported through the usual channels before decisions are being taken. But basically, FCC are having operational issues, but I'll ask him to go into more detail.
Yes, thank you. So, in relation to recycling in particular, this is probably one of our most stubborn areas that we report in relation to movement. Clearly, the council would like to increase the amount of recycling our residents undertake. This is a wider issue in relation to behavioural changes, but more importantly, one of the issues that has contributed to uncertainty within this particular area has been the reluctance, or to some extent, the delays from the government to publish its specific strategy in relation to waste and recycling nationally, and some of the responsibilities in relation to packaging and wider recycling initiatives that would really improve that particular percentage, not least in relation to weekly food collections. The council is in the process of drafting a waste and recycling strategy. In the absence of that information and that certainty from government in relation to some of the things that it can do to contribute and increase recycling within the borough. But fundamental changes in this particular area can only be made once the government has published its roadmap, which currently, from the latest information that I've received recently, has been delayed from 2024 to 2025.
Thank you for that. I think I only had a couple more brief questions. I was on page 13, it talks about the 103 street litter picking routes. And I was just wondered if we members had visibility of where they are, because from a member perspective, I'm not aware of that. I don't know whether that's just a piece of information that could be shared with members just as a matter of information for that. Bear with me a second, thank you. And on page 14, when we're talking about one of the projects for this area to deliver year one of the 5-year bush shelter improvement plan, I just wonder if you give us a little bit of clarity on what that would look like from year one? What output should we expect to see as members?
On those two specific questions, I'm sure that officers would be able to supply more detail over the 103 Street litter picking routes, and if it's not an arduous piece of work to supply that on a ward basis to councillors, that shouldn't be a problem. On the second question, with regard to the 5-year bus shelter improvement plan, I think from recollection there was something like 80 odd for bus shelters which we had control of as a council, and council agreed to have this 5-year improvement plan, and in year one I think off the top of my head I think it's 18 bus shelters will be done, but there will be regular reports back to members because it's only just been adopted as a project within the corporate strategy refresh. But I'm quite happy offline where we can supply ward councillors the plans in year one anyway, if it's relevant to those particular areas. So, for instance, if there are any plans in Buckshaw or Whittle, etc., we'll circulate that detail, but we'll circulate it to all members to do it, because off the top of my head, I can't remember all the 80-odd sites, but I think a few are in Chorley town centre area, but I think there was 5 in Exton that were scheduled, just off the top of my head, but we'll supply you that information as a committee.
Yeah, just to add to that, so in total there were 83 for the 5-year programme. There's 19 in the first year, and we undertook an exercise to look at the quality and condition of those bus shelters and graded them essentially from year 1 to year 5. Obviously, the first 19 in year 1, and that has already been agreed by Executive Cabinet. So we're more than happy to publish that information.
Thank you. Does anybody have any further questions? Should we let them go? Well, we're now at the end of the discussion for this item, so could we please note the report? And if everybody's happy to note the report, I'd like to thank Councillor Lowe and officers for their time, for their understanding, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Committee, and look forward for, if I'm still the executive member next year, and if you're still the Chair, repeat performance.
Now on to the Q4 performance panel, which is item 4, which is pages 17 to 38 in the report. And Vicky Willett, who's the Director of Change and Delivery, is going to present the report. But could I just have it minuted, please, that I would expect going forward that one of the executive members, the leader, the deputy leader, or one of the cabinet will be here to present this report, because I believe our job is to scrutinise members, not officers. Officers' job is to support and supplement the work members are doing. But over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. So just to briefly run you through the Q4 performance report, you'll be familiar with the format. This is the first quarter that we've reported on the projects that were approved in the Refresh Corporate Strategy in November 2022. So this covers the period of delivery against those projects from January to March. In terms of performance information, there is a summary of the performance at the end of Q4, which relates to the indicators in the previous strategy, so that you've got a full year's worth of data. The new indicators will be reported from the Q1 report, although many of them are very similar. There aren't many changes at all. So you've got that information there for context. So just to run through, in terms of overall performance, out of the 19 projects that are included within the strategy, 2 are complete at this point, 16 are green, and 1 is amber. And then of the performance indicators at the end of Q4, 67% are on or above target, 1 is below target, but within threshold, and 1 is below target, and we'll cover those when we get to the end of the report. So looking at the first priority, housing where residents can live well, at point 14, it lists a number of achievements under that one, including the opening of Tatton Gardens, further delivery of affordable housing and how plans are developing for that, the development of an energy saving service for households, and then progress on the local plan. In terms of the project summary, you can see there that 3 are rated green at point 18, in 19, and 1 is rated complete, which is Tatton Gardens, now open, and then 1 rated amber, and you can see the reasons for that in the table at point 21. The key reasons being capacity within the team and expertise of the local plan team and some vacancies in key posts. That recruitment has been underway, and I can update to say that we have been successful in recruiting to some of those posts, and resources have been put in place to help bolster the team, so that will be reported further at Q1. Moving on to a green and sustainable borough at point 22. Again, a number of highlights in terms of outcomes against the priorities at this point in the year. We can see that we've exceeded our tree planting target, which was to plant a tree for every resident, and 117,000 trees have now been planted. Improvements to the Westway Nature Reserve and enhancement. The development of a business energy efficiency scheme, which is a scheme that looks to provide grants towards the costs of undertaking energy improvements following the completion of an energy audit, so that's a full package for businesses. And then finally the bus shelter improvement plan, which we've just been covering. In summary of those projects at point 25, they are all green and performances as planned. The next priority, an enterprising economy with a vibrant local centre and urban and rural areas. Some highlights again from this one, the completion of the Strawberry Meadows employment site, and then further improvements to Astley as a key anchor visitor attraction, to make sure that we continue to use that. And obviously it's fully on show this weekend with the flower show. And then finally there at point 29, the development of a skills and jobs programme, including activity within high schools to help showcase future careers, and a careers event held here in March 2023, which was attended by over 500 students from the high schools across the borough. In terms of overall performance, 1 project is completed, that's Strawberry Meadows, and then 3 are rated green, so Astley Skills and Jobs Programme and the improvements to local service centres, which are underway. Finally, healthy, safe and engaged communities. A quick summary again of some of the highlights. We've had a big early help event to bring together key partners to provide support to families and parents. At point 35 there, more information on delivery of the Cost of Living Action Plan, which continues to provide support in a range of ways, including the Warm Spaces project, the Household Support Fund and the Uniform Swap Shop, supporting those families who need it most at this time. And then at point 36, the continuation of the programme to deliver health and wellbeing services through the Healthy Weight Management Programme, but then also improving the way that we communicate through our website and other means about the range of health and wellbeing opportunities that are on offer across the borough, including through our leisure centres. And finally at point 37, just a note on the transformation programme and how we continue to improve the way that we work as a council so that we can engage with our residents and deliver better services, through looking at sharing of pest control services, but then also supporting our staff to develop and improve as well through internal staff engagement and development opportunities. In summary there at point 39, all 5 projects under that priority are on track as planned. So just quickly to turn to those performance of the corporate strategy measures. At point 40 you can see that 14 are on target, 5 are worse than target but outside thresholds. These 5 have been carried forward into the new set of corporate strategy measures for this year, so we will continue to monitor them and keep an eye on them. The key ones there, as you can see, are a number of people who participate in volunteering as a result of intervention by the Employment Service, which is significantly lower than anticipated, potentially due to not being able to get back as many volunteers post-pandemic, perhaps compared to during the pandemic where there was a lot more volunteering due to the furlough scheme, which is the period that we're comparing to there in the table, at Q4 21-22. We have undertaken action to improve that through the launch of the internal volunteering policy, regular meetings with our partners to encourage them to also support volunteering and work on the volunteering work week in June this year. Other indicators off track are the growth in business rate base, which is lower than anticipated. This, as a result potentially of the coming to the end of the current local plan and the number of sites being available for employment needing to be refreshed in the new local plan. We continue to support businesses to grow and have been working closely with businesses from across the borough, including those in rural areas. Median workplace earnings, another one that's off track compared to the same time last year. The action plan highlights the number of kind of small enterprises in Chorley, and it may also be a symptom of the kind of post-pandemic change towards people setting up their own individual independent businesses, more people becoming sole traders. So the business support team continue to engage and provide support to those businesses to make sure that they're sustainable into the future and can continue to grow. And then the final couple on this one, number of affordable homes delivered, again linked to site availability in the local plan, looking forward to the refresh and identification of new sites in the future local plan, and the corporate strategy project which has been put in place in the new strategy to address and develop a plan for more affordable homes. Final one, the overall employment rate, lower than anticipated compared to both North West and national averages, and significantly worse than target of 80%. Again, reasons there include the number of small businesses, potential vulnerability to economic pressures, and the continued work that the business engagement team are doing to help support and sustain businesses so that they are able to maintain kind of local employment. And then very finally, at the end of the report, we also report some key service measures. So these are the ones that look in more detail at our performance. At point 44, you can see that 4 are performing above target or on target. 1 is slightly outside target but within the threshold, so that's NNDR and business rates. And then at point 46, the one that's off track is the town centre vacancy rate at 13.56% against a target of 8%, which is higher than the same time last year and worse than trend. Again, reasons there linked to kind of the residual impact of the pandemic in terms of town centre vacancies, however proactive action in the town centre to develop new facilities such as the markets, seeing good footfall and the new market venue which has been promoted, and lots of activity in that area to encourage a vibrant town centre. So I think that covers everything. Again, happy to take any questions or to source any further information that you might need. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I invite members to make any comments. Councillor Lees? No? Councillor Snape?
Yeah, I just had 2 questions. The page 24, paragraph 29. Obviously, there's loads of really good skills stuff and going on, and I have raised this with the cabinet member. But the thing is, as councillors, like particularly if you're getting residents approaching you saying, you know, why didn't you tell me? You know, why didn't I hear about that really good event that was going on at the town hall? And I think on particularly the careers event, and I'm not talking from a political kudos perspective, I'm just talking about knowing what's going on. We're kind of hearing about things secondhand. I think there was a Choose Chorley event where the first time most members heard about it was through sponsored Facebook adverts, you know, in terms of knowing what's happening. So maybe, I mean, the world that we're in, you know, it doesn't cost anything just to whack an email out. Oh, that's what we've got in the know. Yeah, that's what we've got in the know for, isn't it? And then my second point was just about, it's on the next page, page 26, paragraph 35, the uniform swap shop scheme. It says it's been expanded with schools. And I know I raised this with the cabinet member last year because I think I was shopping in Asda and I saw the big pop-up tent on the car park and I thought, you know, wow, but all it was a small number of town centre primary schools. And I thought, well, what about, you know, the villages and things? And I know there is an aspiration to expand it, but it would be interested to know, has it been where has it been expanded? Is it schools doing it in isolation or with support of the council? And also, I think the biggest thing is like with people going to secondary school, you know, it's a cost, isn't it? You know, particularly if you've got to have the logo on it and things like that. So I'd be interested to see what's happening from the secondary schools as well, and perhaps if people are working together. I know it's constantly on social media what South Ribble are doing about having a big collective push from the civic centre, and that seems to get hundreds of people through the door. So I don't know whether if there are any gaps in Chorley, but I'd be really interested to know that. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, point noted on the communication around the business events. I think that's absolutely valid. We are looking at developing a new business newsletter, so that could be a good place to be able to include that information, and we'll make sure that members are on the circulation list for that, but we'll also use those obvious mechanisms like in the know to make sure that things are communicated in a timely way. As you say, it helps us if you can promote it as well and be able to share it with residents, and we can help you in that respect. And then on the uniform swap shop, I'll certainly raise that point as well, and I will find out which schools are included in the expansion and be able to provide that list to you.
Councillor Singh?
Yeah. The paragraph 14 about Tatton Garden, so I was there last week, got shown around, and I got lots of positive comments from residents there, people using it, and it was just great to see it open up and available to everybody. So yeah, I think it's great, happy with that. Second point is on page 22, paragraph 22, 117,000 trees. I'm trying to picture that in my mind, it sounds huge. Obviously we exceeded the target. I'm assuming that target's then going to go up even further. And if you could let us know that, obviously, councillors, how we can get involved in that, parish councils, how they can get involved, and it's just to push the number up. So the more trees we plant, the better it is. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Agree on Tatton Gardens. Lots of publicity about that recently. And then the tree planting, I will, yes, confirm the target with you, and yes, how members can be involved, absolutely.
Any further questions? I've got a few, if I may. Thank you. I wanted to start, please, with the bottom of page 20, and the classification of the local plan as being amber. I would go as far as to say we should actually be seriously considering marking that as red. Looking at the plan the council agreed for under the Central Lancashire local plan not too long ago at council, it earmarked that we would be consulting on the preferred options part 2 in August and September, and I think reading this report is politely telling us we're quite a long way from that stage yet, which I suspect pushes back many of the dates quite significantly. And given that we've had staff challenges in that area and significant responses, I mean, I hope the council isn't too surprised that he got significant responses from residents, because surely one of the things we have most challenging conversations as members and as a council with residents at the moment is housing delivery, locations, and what needs to be around those. So how sure are you that that is really amber as opposed to red, and what kind of date are we looking forward for that, I suppose, next stage consultation, so we can understand how potentially delayed we are on this programme?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So in terms of the local plan rating, I suppose we take a number of factors into consideration when we look at the ratings, and when we're assessing and scrutinising this internally as well. So the rating itself, obviously the local plan is a 3-way programme. It's not just ourselves, it's also with South Ribble and Preston. So we have to kind of take into account the position that the other authorities are at as well when looking at the programme. We do have a programme that is set out. The team have identified actions to bring the programme back on track as it needs to be, and there are actions in place to address the resourcing. A red rating would effectively represent that the project is at a standstill and that there is no kind of plan for the project to move forward. That's not the case. There are clear mitigating actions and plans in place. So on that basis, whilst it is, yes, a very significant project and there are a lot of risks to delivery at this point, I'm confident that there are actions in place and that the mitigating actions should mean that we're able to drive forward. Whether we will get to a green rating not next quarter, I think is still to be kind of confirmed. We're monitoring progress internally all the time, but I think an amber rating at this point is probably valid.
Okay, thank you. And I think we all hope that it is green next time around. Our lives will all be considerably quieter. I think moving forward, on page 24, we talk about the success of Strawberry Meadows and it lists some of the businesses that are in there. I just wondered if we had any feeling for how many of those are new businesses to Chorley or how many of those are relocating within Chorley and from where and why.
I don't have the specific figures to hand, but I'll be able to get them to you. I think from memory, it's a mixture of both. Obviously, we're keen as far as possible to ensure that our kind of Chorley grown businesses are able to grow and retain within the borough, so that's very much our priority. But equally, if there are particular industries that can relocate to Chorley and grow again and support our existing local economy or existing supply chains, then that's perhaps something that we can accommodate. So I will look to confirm those figures and again the status of the businesses.
Thank you. That would be most helpful. Sorry, moving on to the next item. When we had a council decision over whether to charge entrance fees or not for Ashley Hall, we had quite a vigorous debate, I think, on that. And I'd be just interested to, at some point, understand when we're going to see how that programme is recorded. Because I don't think it's been back to council. I don't think we've had a report saying what the visitor numbers have been against the forecasts, how well that's performing. I don't know what the appropriate point will be to do that, maybe after the summer programme has concluded and we move towards the autumn, but I'd be interested to see some data at that at some point so we can see how that work is undertaking, I think. And moving on, I wanted to just briefly ask your opinion on paragraph 35 at the bottom of page 26, where the cost of living action plan, because there's a significant amount of data there and committee is due to sit as full scrutiny next week to finalise our work plan, and that is one of the ideas that has been suggested. And I'm just trying to get an understanding of whether the council would think it valuable for the scrutiny committee to look at that area and what areas it could focus on if it chose to do so, given the amount of data we have at that point.
Yeah, from my perspective, I know we have some really excellent data about that programme, and I think it would really it would warrant some consideration to look at how we can take forward some of these initiatives to better support our communities and continue that support. Obviously, some of the initiatives have been government funded, some have been locally delivered, and I think it's a good point to evaluate and see where we may want to kind of tweak our services or have a look at our existing services to better meet some of the local needs based on the provision that we've had in place in response to the cost of living plan. So I know there is some really excellent quality data, and it's definitely something that we could bring together for you to have a look at.
Thank you. I think we'll take that into consideration next week and we can share that with the rest of committee at that point. I wanted to move to page 29, please, the bottom table, the section of growth in business rates. Obviously that just shows that the performance isn't great compared to the last quarter. And I see part of the explanation is given we're coming to the end of the local plan stage, there's not necessarily sites for businesses to grow forward. But I just wondered if you had any idea of what that would look like over the last 12 or 24 months. Obviously, there have been significant opportunities for business rate growth because of the development in the town centre and other areas. If you don't have that data to hand, obviously, it'd be just useful to have that broader spectrum, I think, from that perspective. And I just was looking for similar clarity on the table at the bottom of page 30, please, where we talk about the number of affordable homes delivered. Again, we talk about coming to towards the end of the local plan and this type of sites that are available. But I'm wondering if there's any information available on the amount of applications where the council doesn't successfully secure the 30% affordable homes set as the local plan policy when we actually conclude those planning arrangements. So we've got an understanding of how many are just due to the type of sites coming forward at the end of the local plan and how many of those sites that council policy says should be providing 30%, like the development on Exton Lane, which I don't believe is. And therefore, we've got some understanding of if the council has chose to not take those affordable homes and has chosen to prioritise something else, we can understand that in context and scrutiny can decide whether it thinks that is something we should be doing or not.
Yeah, we can get you the data, or we will. I'll talk to colleagues about getting that data for both of those points. I know when we talk to businesses about what they need in terms of space to grow, that is a big challenge. Many businesses wanting to locate within Chorley and sites are limited. So it's in the economic strategy that we'll look at how we can repurpose existing sites or make better use of existing facilities to enable those businesses to grow through a range of different types of accommodation and spaces. So some need office space, some need kind of small development space, some need manufacturing space, some want great big spaces. So I think it is a variety in terms of the need, and we might be able to look at kind of some of our existing facilities and how we could repurpose or reuse those, as well as new sites coming forward in the local plan.
I just had one final point, you'll be relieved, or question you'll be relieved to hear. On the bottom of page 32, we just talk about the town centre vacancy rate, and again, obviously there's clearly challenges there at the moment. But just for my clarity, is that vacancy rate measured against the full units, or the units we currently have earmarked as available? Because I believe I saw a report or something recently which suggested some units were effectively closed, and therefore I didn't know whether that was misrepresenting the number of units that are full compared to the original capacity of the shopping centre, if that makes any sort of sense. I see you nodding, so I hope it does.
Yeah, I think, I see what you mean. I'll double check the definition of that that data, that indicator. I think it's against the full range of town centre properties, but I'll double check again on that one.
Thank you, and I appreciate the time taken to answer those questions that, like I say, I think should have been at least started to be fronted up by one of the executive members. So we're now at the end of the discussion on this item. Are we all content to note the report? Yeah. Thank you. So that is the end of that item. So thank you very much for your time. We appreciate that. So we'll move on to item 5. Any urgent business previously agreed with the chair? I have no urgent items. So I now declare the meeting is closed. Thank you for your attendance, everybody.